The provider has to evaluate the suitability of the patient for the medication and weigh the benefits and risks for each of these encounters. Even though they might be writing these scripts all the time, so you think it doesn't involve much work, there is this evaluation that does occur. Now, what counts as prescription drug management? Giving samples with or without a prescription all falls under prescription drug management. The process of prescription drug management would include giving the patient the actual meds as samples. The thought process and risk would remain the same as writing it down on a piece of paper. So for example, a female patient has allergic rhinitis. The allergist gives her samples of Astelin to try as needed. He tells the patient to call in for a prescription if she feels the prescription helps. This case constitutes prescription management, and that's because it actually involves deciding how much risk is going to be involved from the time the patient sees the patient at this encounter to the next time. You'll be at a lower level of risk if the encounter involves only over-the-counter meds. Risk assessment relates to the disease process anticipated between the present encounter and the next one. If the patient has not been given prescription samples or had merely been instructed to use over-the-counter drugs, then you've got less risk involved. And the table of risk provides over-the-counter drug management as an example of low risk. So do be aware that you do actually have OTC on there on your table. To judge a case's ultimate risk level, look at your three circles. Let's say in our OM example, the physician's diagnosis or chronic of otitis media with effusion and documentation support a chronic illness with progression. So here we've looked at our ICD-9 code. We see it's chronic, so we've got our choice of our ability to qualify that presenting problem as a chronic illness with progression. And the child who is new to the ENT has no comorbidities, so we have a minor surgery. Now, do your circles equate to low or moderate risk? You only need the one item for risk, and you assign the level based on the highest circle. As the chart shows, the highest level is moderate. Therefore, the otitis media case has a moderate risk level. Breathe a sigh of relief. I know this has been a lot, but we're at the final medical decision-making calculation step. To tally your whole MDM, you're going to enter the three table scores in the final result for complexity tables. Determine the final score using 2 out of the 3 elements. You circle a 3 in the first row for a new patient with a worsening condition, moderate for the highest level of risk, and 1 or less than, so 0 or 1, minimal in the third row for no workup ordered as follows. So here are our 3 circles. Because the scenario involves 2 circles in one column, you draw a line down that column, which classifies the case as moderate complexity. This level of medical decision-making can support a level 4 new patient office visit, and that would assume that we would have the other components necessary there. Now, how would you score a case in which no column had 2 circles? So if you've only got, 1, it's easy when you've got 2 or 3, but what if you only have 1 in your high circle? The Highmark auditing score sheet instructs you if no column contains 2 or 3 circles to draw a line down the column with the second circle from the left. So let's take a look at a case that involves moderate risk. Here we have a patient who has allergic rhinitis. It's usually controlled with Allegra D. The patient's sinusitis is a new problem, no additional workup and tests. Patient gives her own history. Pediatrician previously treated the patient's allergies and writes her a prescription telling her to fill it if she finishes the samples provided. She decides diazole is decreasing her sinusitis and allergic rhinitis exacerbations. Oh, this is interesting because now I'm finding a problem in this example which has been used before, that it's a new problem to the pediatrician, but he's already written her prescription drugs. You would assign the sinusitis 3 points for a new problem with no workup, and the allergic rhinitis 1 point for an established stable problem. So we just need to, in this example, get rid of that the patient was a new patient. The 4 points for diagnoses counts as extensive. You would give no points under the amount and or complexity of data reviewed. That's because the teenager gave her own history and the physician orders no tests. So you've got nothing in this column. No data equals minimal or low. This is our combination. Now drawing a line down the column with the second circle from the left gives you moderate complexity. So since we only had 1 in each, we just go to the next one over here, and we've got that one. So now before you rush to code a level 4 new patient visit, make sure you consider the rest of the documented visit. So even though this one could go to a 99214, you want to make sure that you would have the corresponding medically necessary history physical exam information to support that chosen code level. So I'm going to give you a little homework here. This is putting it together. You've got a patient who comes into the office complaining of chest pain, a workup is done, and you're going to actually be coding for that full history, exam, and medical decision making. So if you haven't listened to the rest of the other series, you're going to want to go back and do your homework and see if you can use the score sheet and come up with the same answer. Now, if you have any questions, please let me know. My email is jenniferg@supercoder.com. We also have the information for customer service listed on the presentation. So I always look forward to hearing from people. A lot of times people have some very complex questions, and I try to research those and get them documentation if I can to help them out with any concerns and questions. That concludes our series on EM coding. From the countless email praises and requests we've received, you've all gained a lot of information. Our next webinar will feature our OB coding guru, Suzanne Leader, who's written OB Coding Alert, coached by every OB coder's favorite expert, Melanie Witt. She'll be giving that on April 20th, same day of the week, same time. She'll be covering ICD-10 coding basics, packed with lots of OB, cardio, and other specialty examples. If you haven't already, check out supercoder.com. And for all the learning we've packed in this half hour here, here is your CEU code, INH 040-510-0841A. And so that you don't have to be a thinker and you can get inside your physician's head. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar, brought to you by supercoder.com. Heroes, welcome.